You learned as a child to silence a truth before it left your mouth. You raised your hand. You waited for the nod. You learned to value that nod more than what you thought. Michel Foucault saw this and named the machinery that makes it inevitable. Power does not only forbid, it teaches us to become our own jailers. He didn't draw a conspiracy. He described a process, invisible, mundane, relentless, that trains you to need the gaze of others, because that gaze becomes the only measure of reality. Picture a classroom at 9. Fluorescent lights hum. A wooden ruler taps the desk with slow assurance. The teacher's eyes move down the rows and stop. A child answers, voice thin with hope. A star sticker appears in the margin. The child swells. The star is small. The effect is large. The child learns. Approval moves the world. The reward is predictable. The reward is public. The schoolyard becomes a rehearsal hall for obedience. Why do we trade accuracy for applause? Why do we correct our faces in mirrors of strangers before correcting our facts? Think of the panopticon, Bentham's circular prison, an observer at the center, inmates visible but not the watcher. Foucault took that image out of stone cells and set it in our homes, our classrooms, our workplaces. The watchman was replaced by 1,000 little eyes, a teacher's jot, a parent's tone, a boss's quarterly review, a notification count. Eventually, the observation inhabits you. You watch yourself. This is not abstraction. A 1951 experiment by Solomon Asch will interrupt any comfortable theory of individuality. A man looks at 3 lines and says the wrong one because the room says so. One by one, invisible pressures bend perception. Then there is Stanley Milgram, who proved obedience can make people administer harm because an authority instructs them. These are not stories of rare monsters, they are protocols. They teach the nervous system what to honor, the external cue over the internal verdict. Consider a scene decades later. A young professional sits in a glass office. Her performance metrics glow on a dashboard. She rewrites an email 6 times. She deletes a sentence that makes her vulnerable because the last manager frowned when someone owned a mistake. She changes a presentation slide to show optimism instead of accuracy because the reward system is upward movement, not truth. She understands the rules tacitly. She has been trained to read the scoreboard and to edit herself for applause. Mechanics are simple and surgical. Praise and punishment, grading and ranking, visibility and comparison. Each method sculpts behavior through reinforcement. A parent's good girl becomes a lifetime contract. A teacher's red mark composes a script, behave to belong. An employer's bonus replaces moral argument with measurable incentive. Social media collapse these techniques into a single device, the like. You post, it lights. You wait. The statistic says you exist. The brain responds. Dopamine spikes, then adjusts. The loop hardens into habit. You do not seek truth, you seek validation. This is not purely modern. In the 18th century, Prussian educational reforms standardized classrooms to produce obedient citizens for factories and armies. Standardization taught people to quantify themselves by scores. The revolution was not just industrial, it was psychic. You are the product of that history. You were engineered to perform according to external metrics because societies once needed predictable citizens. Today the demand continues, but the auditors have multiplied and privatized. Algorithms watch, metrics judge, peers broadcast. The panopticon now fits in your pocket. Here is an unsparing fact: social rejection registers in the same neural circuitry as physical pain. Naomi Eisenberger and colleagues showed that being excluded activates the anterior cingulate cortex, the alarm for bodily harm. Your brain cannot easily tell the difference between being cut and being ignored. No wonder you will change a belief rather than feel that pain. No wonder you will prefer a comforting falsehood signed by many to an accurate truth held by one. What does the training look like when you are an adult? You compose your life into evidence that others will accept. You choose words that will be rewarded in your office. You attend the parties whose photos will paint you successful. You craft opinions that will accumulate likes. You rehearse indignation on subjects where outrage yields attention. You delete a text, then rewrite it to sound less needy. You do not notice the habit until a silence reveals it, the silence of your own voice. There is a private theater behind every public performance. You practice responses in your head. You imagine faces, nods, thumbs up. Parents perform this for children. Teachers perform this for students. Employers formalize it into reviews. Algorithms harvest it and amplify the behaviors that generate more attention. You do not simply imitate, you internalize. The watch becomes you. And because the system works by shaping perception, it creates its own truths. A leader popular enough becomes legitimate. A narrative repeated enough becomes fact. Power manufactures consent by making dissent costly, socially, economically, emotionally. Dissent hurts. Approval heals. The arithmetic is cruelly efficient. Ask yourself, when did you last change your mind because evidence compelled you, not because applause demanded it? Pick a memory, a meeting, a conversation, a post that earned you praise, a child you corrected out of embarrassment rather than principle. Hear the ring of a star sticker, hear the tap of a ruler. Hear your own breath when you withhold a truth. This is not merely about weakness, it is about training. You were taught where to look for truth. And that instruction was never neutral. It had ends. It needed citizens who would defer, who would measure themselves by external criteria, who would behave predictably. Once the measure becomes more valuable than the measured, reality itself is negotiable. There is a single, harsh insight. The appetite for approval is manufactured and then fed by the structures that profit from it. Knowing this changes nothing by itself. Knowledge is not a lever unless you use it. But the knowledge removes the pretense that needing approval is a private failing. It is a designed feature. So what now? You can keep performing, trading accuracy for acceptance in a market of eyes. You can cultivate a private metric, evidence, consequence, integrity, and test yourself against it. Neither is comfortable. One continues the old habit, the other invites solitude and disagreement. Both expose you to pain. A final observation: freedom from the gaze is not found by turning off notifications. It is found by deciding which gazes count. That decision will always be costly. Which truth will you risk for silence? Which approval will you refuse? You were trained to avoid those costs. The training remains. The question does not leave you with an answer. It leaves you watched and aware.